My name is Kathleen, and I will be interviewing you for my French languages class. Can you please introduce yourself?
Bonjour, je m'appelle Anna Fini et je suis la mère de Kathleen Fini.
Ah, bonjour, Anna. For this interview, I will be trying to get to know a little bit more about your background and how you learned the languages that you know and if you use them today. To begin, what are the origins of your parents and why did they immigrate to Canada?
My parents are Portuguese. They were born, educated, and raised in Portugal. When they were in their early 20s, they decided to immigrate to Canada for a better life. At this point, they did not have my sister or myself, but they knew that they wanted children and wanted to give their children a better life as well. My father's sister sponsored him to immigrate to Canada, and later on, he sponsored my mother.
Oh, okay. Did they have any family here and did they learn to speak English?
Well, my father came to Canada first, and he started to learn the English language so that would be easier for my mom. He worked during the day in construction and went to school at night to learn English as a second language. My mother came about a year later. They got married, and then she began working in a factory, and that also helped her learn to speak the English language.
What is the first language that you have learned and why is it your first language? In most cases, people learn the languages of their parents.
Yes, that is correct. I learned to speak Portuguese because that was the language spoken at home. My parents belonged to the Portuguese community and attended masses in Portuguese. Much of the communication was in that language. While conversing with family or friends from outside of our household, we would also speak only Portuguese. I did not learn English until later in my life.
Okay, Anna, and what other languages do you know?
Um, English has become my main language. I am proficient and fluent. English is how I speak to my family and friends. I can read, write, speak, and understand English without any trouble. Because of my Latin background of speaking Portuguese, I took French up until first year university. I can speak and understand French, but I am unable to write it. My husband is Italian and his parents are Italian immigrants, so they speak predominantly Italian. Because of the similarities between Italian and Portuguese, I can understand Italian, but they have to speak very slowly, so but I cannot read or write it.
Did you experience difficulty learning English? If so, how did you fix this problem?
Yes, I did. When I was around 4 years old, I had spent a year in Portugal with my aunt, and then it was time for me to return to Canada. So then I could attend school, senior kindergarten. I started school a year later than most students. The other students already had been in school for a year in junior kindergarten. This was very challenging for me because I had no foundation of English. Sometimes in class, I would feel and be very frustrated, and I was not able to communicate my wants, and I would begin to cry out of frustration. My father saw how upset or frustrated I was, and he would try to teach me one English word a day so that I would learn the language. Between attending school every day, speaking English with my dad and friends, and watching the television shows such as Sesame Street, which was my favorite, I learned how to speak the language. I remember watching Sesame Street almost daily, and then this really helped me.
What was the hardest aspect of the English language for you to learn? For example, verbs, pronunciation, spelling, etc.
I would say that the hardest part for me was grammar. I had a really hard time using the verbs in the proper tense with the correct conjugations.
And was there anything that helped you overcome that obstacle?
Mostly school and television. Sometimes I would stay in for recess or after school for extra help with the teachers.
Since you learned French later than English and Portuguese, did you find it easier or harder to learn than English? When did you start to learn French?
French surprisingly came very easily to me, as it has similarities to Portuguese. I thought French was easier, but as I got older, I would only be taking one French class a day, so I became more fluent in English. This became easier for me because it quickly became my most proficient and spoken language. As most students, I started to learn it in the first grade and as a secondary language. I was learning French and English at the same time. At times, I would confuse the two languages because I would interchange the words and the way it is spoken. For example, in English, you say the black cat, but in French, you say le chat noir. it was hard for me to balance all three languages at such a young age.
Oh, okay. Why did you stop pursuing French? Was it too difficult for you? And what was the hardest part of learning French? I personally find pronunciation extremely difficult.
I stopped taking French in first year university. What I found difficult is that I had a professor that spoke Quebecois French, and I was not used to that, so I struggled as I was taught and used to speaking the Parisian French. I was extremely confused at the time. I was majoring in business, and French, there was a higher demand for business than French. The professor set me back, and I didn't have the time to dedicate to both courses. When I was learning French, the hardest part for me was verb conjugation. I often struggled with knowing what tense to use and how to describe it. Last year, I took a trip to France with my family, and I was quite surprised because the language quickly came back to me. I was able to understand it, but since I haven't spoken the language in over 30 years, it was difficult to speak confidently.
Have you used any of the languages that you've learned throughout your career?
I have used Portuguese and French in my career to help customers who did not speak English. When I had to speak French, it was slightly difficult because Portuguese is very similar to Spanish. I also have been able to assist Spanish speaking clients.
Have there been any other instances outside of your household where you use the languages you learned?
Absolutely. I think you use your languages mostly when traveling to different parts of the world. When I traveled to Portugal and France, I was the method of communication for my family. I would have to speak, understand, and read these languages in Spanish speaking islands of the Caribbean. I've also communicated with citizens in Portuguese. We were able to understand each other. When we went to Quebec, I also spoke French, although I don't think they understood me.
What languages did you want your child to learn, and how did you go about this?
My child grew up speaking English because that is the language spoken at home. However, there is some regret that we did not teach and encourage her to speak Portuguese or Italian from either parent. I wanted to make sure she had a second language, and so we enrolled her in French Extended in grade 5 until university. She has now decided to minor in French for university. The reason why it is so important to learn French is because it will provide anyone with ample work opportunities in Canada, regardless of sectors, and being bilingual will help work for and being bilingual can also help you be employed with the government of Canada.
Thank you, Anna, for answering these questions for me. It seems that you know many languages. You should be proud of yourself. Do you have anything else that you want to add?
Non, c'est tout. Merci, Kathleen.